So, as I was saying about ethics, yeah, there are those who thrive with ethics and others that don't. So, when I say being reliable, I mean, you know, being true to your word. That if you say something's going to be delivered on a certain date at a certain time, that it will be delivered on that date and on that time. That if you say you shake hands with someone and you make a promise, that you carry through with that promise. That's ethics. It's also being true to your boss. Listen, there is not a person that I have ever met in my life that hasn't called in on a sick day when they're not sick because they feel, hey, I need a mental health day, or I just need to take some time off and I'm going to call out and I don't have any annual time left or vacation time, so I'm going to call in sick and take the day off. Is that ethical? Well, if you do it once, I would say, hey, that's if you do it over a period of time and you're not showing up for work, you have a responsibility, you have a moral responsibility, an ethical responsibility. You're taking money from your job, and you need to show up for work, even though you may not want to be at work, or if something at work is bothering you, or things are not going well at work. You still need to be there. It's very hard. I know. I know. All of you have your own situations in life, and everyone has their own situations in the workplace, including myself. Over the years, I've had times where I've not wanted to go to work. I've had times in the morning when I don't want to get up and go to work. Sometimes I hated the person that I worked for or couldn't stand them. And I said to myself, what am I doing to myself? Why am I going into this place that I'm not happy? Even though it's a paycheck, isn't it more important that I'm happy as a person than going into work? And yes, all those things are true. Those are things that are very true. You do want to lead a life where you are, not necessarily happy all the time, but that you are enjoying your work, that you get pleasure out of your work, that you get accomplishment out of your work, that you feel that you've done something. And that's a part of ethics also, that you want ethically to be treated like you treat others. And if you treat others well, then you want to be treated well. And if you treat others with respect, then you want to be treated with respect. And if you treat others as you would, you are colorblind, gender blind. You treat others as human beings, and that they deserve the same rights, and you treat them with respect, and you don't yell at them, and you don't berate them. That's a part of ethics too. As my dog comes down, it's a very important part of ethics. I'll tell you a story. Sometimes my stories maybe are a little bit better than me kind of like talking like this, even though it's a short video. So there was a very famous business. I was thinking about this the other day about marketing and ethics and business, and there was a very famous story of a company that really ran the diamond industry for many decades in the United States and throughout the world. And it was a company from South Africa named De Beers, and they really came up with the concept of diamonds. Now you say to me, "See, well, so Professor Goldstein, you don't know what you're talking about. Diamonds have been around for thousands of years. There were kings and queens and royalty that wore diamonds in ancient times." Yeah, that is true. Diamonds have been around for thousands of years. I don't deny that, but the idea of diamonds as a consumer item really was developed by De Beers late 1800s, early 1900s, throughout the world, and they were the ones that usually diamonds before that were considered a precious stone, just like emeralds and rubies and other precious stones that were available for the very wealthy, and they looked very good on jewelry, and they sparkled, and there were different types of diamonds that were put into jewels, large size diamonds, and there were famous diamonds that were very large that were found. Mostly the diamonds were found above the ground, at streams, at rocks, outcroppings. Diamonds are really just a crystallization of carbon that happens over with pressure over hundreds, thousands of years, and it creates this stone that people put a value on. What is value? And we'll talk about value in another chapter here. But value is something really what you place on it. I mean, how valuable is a glass of water to a man who hasn't drunk in 7 days? Pretty valuable, right? That glass of water becomes a higher value thing. But then again, to someone like us, who could turn on their tap or go to a refrigerator or go to a store and buy a bottle of water, the value of water is, whatever they set the value at, which is, $2 a bottle, $1.50, $3 a bottle of water, depending on where you're going and what kind of water you're drinking. Free if you go to a tap water and you go to the tap and you fill up your glass. It's free. But to a person coming out of the desert, I mean, this is a soda, not a water, but who hasn't drunk in days, and he has $1,000 cash on them, what's the value of water? Well, it's $1,000. It's what you have because you want that water. It's the most valuable thing in the world to you at that moment. So how do you set the value of diamonds? Well, De Beers, unethically, came up with a marketing plan how to set the value of diamonds. And it's a very interesting plan, and it was an unethical plan. And it lasted quite a bit of time, up until pretty much recently. And something came along that eliminated the plan. Something came along that made it so that their plan is no longer viable. And I'll give you the example of why it's no longer viable and what happened. So what De Beers did was they said, we're going to corner the diamond market. We're going to buy up all the different diamond mines and so forth, and we're going to create our own market for diamonds in the world. And how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to limit the supply of diamonds. And my dog is trying to get out, so I'm going to help him out and come back. We're going to limit the supply of diamonds, and we're going to say, there we go. We're only going to release a certain amount of diamonds each year, and each week we're going to release a certain amount so that the value of the diamonds is based upon the availability of diamonds. But why do people want diamonds? I mean, why would you want a diamond? Well, now you know. You know, well, I buy a diamond because I'm going to get married, or I'm in love with someone, and I want to show that person that I value that love, and I value that marriage, and I'm going to give them something of great value to show that I value the marriage. Or so ethically, I am going to purchase something. This is a capitalist idea. I'm going to purchase something and give that person that purchase to show them how much I value them. That's really what it's all about. It's a kind of a psychological thing that I'm going to purchase an item of great value, like I'm a king, and I'm going to give my queen a necklace or something of great value to show that I value who they are. Sometimes it would be a gift, like great royalty would give gifts to other royalty to show that they value their relationship between the two nations. Or someone would give a gift from a father to a daughter, or a mother to a son, something of great value, a ring, a jewelry with a lock of hair in it to show that they valued their relationship. Well, what De Beers did was they said, well, they were very good psychologically in terms of marketing, and also very unethical in terms of their psychology, in terms of marketing. They said, hey, how do we create a market for diamonds that doesn't exist, that hadn't existed yet, where people will need to purchase a diamond in order to show value to someone else? How do we create that market? Well, they came up with a marketing plan where they were the first ones to come up with this. And this is an interesting marketing. They started using a new medium called movies that really was started in the 1910s, 1900s. and also they started it in radio, which was also very new, and newspapers and magazines, which really were newspapers that existed before, but magazines were not so much a part of things. They started in the 1800s, magazines, but they really exploded in the early 1900s in the United States and throughout the world. And what they did was they created these, they placed ads and they placed situations in these movies and radio shows and so forth, where in order to show that you were going to get married or get engaged, that a man had to purchase a diamond ring, with, you know, some sort of gold, but a gold band, but a diamond, and the diamond had to be given. You had to give a diamond in order to show your value of your mate, your in those days male, female, and so forth. To show your value, you had to give the diamond in order to propose or to get married, or, you know, as a wedding ring or as an engagement ring. And De Beers would use these situations in movies and radio shows and in magazines and in newspapers to say that if you didn't do that, then you weren't really serious about getting married, or you didn't really value your mate or your spouse or your partner or whatever it was. And it worked. It was a very good psychological thing. And the way they also did it was that you had to spend a certain amount of money in order to purchase that diamond. And what was the value? Well, they came up with a formula that you had to spend at least 2 months of your salary in order to purchase a diamond for your spouse or mate. And that was a formula that De Beers came up with, their marketing agents came up with, their public relations people came up with, that if it was less than 2 months of your salary, then you didn't value that person. If it was more than 2 months, then you truly valued them. And the more above that 2 month threshold, the more you valued your spouse. So very unethical. So now what you're doing is you're saying you're creating a market that doesn't exist. Well, it's good business, you're saying, right? It's good business. Yeah, good business. You marketed something that has no real intrinsic value. What does a diamond do? Well, there are industrial reasons for diamonds. They cut things, and they're very hard and they're very strong. But that's not what they're talking about here. It really is just a sparkly thing that you wear on your finger that looks nice and light. They even came up with a way of, and this is De Beers again, grading your diamond, grading it. So they came up with a thing. They came up with a organization that still exists to this day that would come up with ways of looking at a diamond and saying, well, that diamond is a grade, A, a grade B, a grade C, a grade D. And it would be based upon the color and the clarity of the diamond. Now, that never existed before. That was something that they created out of, so they would say, the clearer, the better the cut, the less, cracks in the diamond, the more valuable the diamond is to who the person is. Now, they did this for years and years, and they also would, at the same time, limit the amount of diamonds that were out in the market. They would mine millions and millions of dollars of diamonds, and they would put them into their safes or hide them, and only release a small, like 5%, less than 5% of their diamonds into the market to be bought. So that would drive the price of the diamonds up, because there was little supply and a larger demand. Even though they had the diamonds, ethically, they were not required to release those diamonds, and so they kept the diamonds. And every time they would release a certain amount of diamonds, and the market would sort of level off, and they would release the amount that was being purchased. But there was a huge need for diamonds, because all these people throughout the world were showing their love and their value of each other by purchasing these diamonds. I'm going to kind of quickly go through what happened to De Beers. So what happened to De Beers is what's happening in the world of diamonds right now. The diamond market is collapsing, as many of you may know. It is no longer intrinsically valued to have a diamond. Why is the diamond market losing its value? Because what was found in the ground, these diamonds had to be mined out of large mines, is now they're able to create in a laboratory. They are now able to create what's called lab diamonds and other lab jewels. And they create these diamonds pretty much using the same thing that nature does, which is taking carbon and pressurizing it. And they create it for 1/100th the price of what the diamond cost, or 1/1000th the price of what the diamond cost. So the diamond that was the natural diamond. So these are lab diamonds, but the lab diamonds are to the eye, you can't tell the difference between even experts can't tell the difference. They have to actually have some sort of microscope or telescope, whatever it is, microscope to be able to tell the difference between a lab diamond and a natural diamond. And so lab diamonds are not controlled by De Beers. They can't control that market. And so what's happened is the market is now flooded with lab diamonds, and the price of diamonds has, devolved. Now, they've tried to create a market and say, oh, you only love someone if you give them a natural diamond, that you're not showing value to a person by giving them a lab diamond. But it's not really working. It's not very successful. It's kind of successful. Some people say, oh, I only buy. There's also been a huge problem, obviously, and most of you know ethically, with the types of people, and I haven't really talked about this, and this is kind of the major point that I wanted to make. Somehow I get off on tangents and I don't make these points. So what De Beers did was they created a market of diamonds, and they used people of Africa who were extraordinarily poor to mine these diamonds, and many of them suffered while mining these diamonds, these precious stones. They were brutalized, they were beaten, they were killed, they died in unsafe conditions, and so forth. And that's why diamonds took on a stigma. There was a whole thing that they were called blood diamonds. Blood diamonds, literally, that people died to provide these wealthy people in the Western world, and from the third world, with diamonds. They suffered greatly. So De Beers also has that on their ethical checklist of horrible things they did. So they used these people, paid them next to nothing, and some of them may have even been slaves, and mined these diamonds to be used by people who wanted to show their love for others. Now that's a very hard thing. Now, do you really want to show your love and value for another person by giving them a diamond that somebody died for? Well, that's not a. They tried to counter that very much. They tried to show, hey, we're not doing that anymore. But it still happens quite a bit. And the lab diamonds, even though they are also created in situations where the people are not paid very well and they are not treated very well, they don't have the same stigma that the blood diamonds that were mined from the ground have. And by the way, people are saying to themselves, why am I wearing a diamond when everybody can buy a diamond now? If everyone could have a lab diamond, and it's not so rare anymore, and it's not so valuable because it's not so rare anymore, why would I want to wear it on my finger or on my necklace? Well, it's still sparkly, it still looks nice, and people like having sparkly things on themselves. It's been time immemorial, you see something sparkling on the ground, you want to pick it up. I mean, I wear rings, I wear jewelry, I like sparkly things. And what is it? I mean, imagine tomorrow if an alchemist or someone came up with the formula for gold, and they could create gold in a laboratory. What would happen to the price of gold? What is the intrinsic value of gold? Gold is just a nice soft metal that looks sparkly, that's very rare, that has to be found in the ground. But gold is, by itself, it's always been, since time, gold. We trade in gold coins, gold bars, gold necklaces, gold rings. But gold is just a metal. It's just like everything else. What is its value? Well, the value is what is set by the market and by people ethically. So same thing with diamonds. Gold also has a lot of ethical questions behind it. And all these precious materials always have questions of ethics. Now, what happens as you spread that? I'm going to talk about ethics in the next lesson that I'm talking about. But what happens when you, and I hope that little story. So right now, what's going to happen in the diamond market? Well, it's still surviving. It's still thriving. Jewelry thrives. Diamonds thrive. Emeralds thrive. It's just not the same thing as it was. They no longer have the same type of control that they had before this company, De Beers, and this family, the De Beers family. Times have changed. They and the value has kind of not been the same. It's more like you've had a drink of water a couple of hours ago, and how much is the glass of water right now? Well, it's not as valuable as it was as if you were coming out of the desert. And very much ethics with business has a lot to do with being true to your people that you have business relationships with. So if you promise someone a glass of water or a diamond for $3,000 and the next week the market goes up to $5,000 diamond and you promise them $3,000 a diamond, is it ethically correct to not give them the diamond at $3,000? That's a good moral question, a good business ethics question. A lot of times in business, people will not. They will say, hey, listen, the market went up. I made that deal with you last week, but now the market's up and it's up, whatever, $2,000 more a diamond. And now you are going to have to pay that price, or we're going to have to reach some sort of arrangement where you meet me halfway and you pay the price. Or do you keep your word and your business word and hopefully do business with this person again and give them, even though you're taking a loss because you could have sold it now at a higher price, do you now sell them that diamond or that glass of water or whatever it is at the price that you agreed to the week before? That's an ethical dilemma that people always face with businesses. People are always, do I keep my promise in business or do I break my promise and make more money? That's an ethical dilemma that people have. Hey, what good is my word? And usually the people that succeed in business over a long period of time are people who are true to their word, who have that reputation as someone who, I don't need to have a contract with you. I'm true to my word. I told you that I would bring this on a certain date for a certain price, and I kept my promise. And this is, this is what you're getting because I promised you that I would give it to you. That's really what I'm very concerned about in ethics is being honest. And it's a hard thing because human beings, by their very nature, are not honest. We're not honest with others, and we're not honest with ourselves. And there's reasons why we're not honest. Sometimes it's a survival mechanism. You don't want to tell a person. Someone asks you how they look, and you tell them, "Oh, you look terrible." That's not really the very. You're going to have a very, even if it's true, even if they do look terrible, and you tell them that they look terrible, it's not the best way to form a relationship with that person. That person may never want to speak to you. Sometimes it's a little harsh. Some people may appreciate the honesty, but that's a little rare. Most people do not like someone who's that blunt and honest. In business, it's the same thing. People say, what do you think of my store, or what do you think of my product? And sometimes you are blunt and you say, listen, your product stinks and your store looks like crap, and I don't like the way things are presented. Well, people sometimes, that might be good. Hey, thank you for your feedback. Thank you. You've helped me. Tell me what you think is wrong. Some sort of constructive criticism. Tell me how you think I could improve it. Sometimes, people walk into your store, like it happens with me, and they're very positive about the place. And sometimes they walk in and they're very critical. And ethically, sometimes I deal with other businesses. I do a lot of business to business work ethically every day. So somebody will give me 20 boxes of cigars and expect to be paid immediately. Or sometimes they'll say, listen, I'm going to receipt you. You have to pay me within 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. And I'm responsible for paying that individual. I have a relationship with that individual. If I do not pay them within that period of time, what happens to that relationship, that business relationship, ethically? Ethically, I'm responsible to pay them. Ethically, I'm supposed to pay them. Sometimes I ask for an extension. I can't pay you right now. Can I get another month or a couple of weeks? Sometimes people come into the store and they buy a cigar from me, and the cigar is dry, or the leaf is falling off, and it's not. Now, what are my ethical responsibilities? We're going to talk about ethics a little bit more in the next one also. But my ethical responsibility most likely is to give them their money back, or give them another product that's that they want, or that's the same price, or give them that same product that where the leaf is not falling off the cigar. A lot of people don't do that. They're unethical. They don't return the person's money, or they don't give them the opportunity to exchange things. A lot of businesses are built upon that mentality that, hey, listen, that's great, but, you bought it, you took it outside, you're responsible for it. I am no longer ethically responsible for the product, and you have to keep that product. So ethics becomes a very fundamental, important part of how you deal with business, and also how you are perceived throughout the world. There are huge corporations that have all sorts of return policies and ethical policies, and how they treat the customers and how they're supposed to act towards the customers. And sometimes you'll see the signs that say the customer is always right. Don't see that too much anymore, but used to see that a lot. That the customer, no matter what the customer says, no matter what the customer does, the customer is always right. You're in a service business. The customer says that the food is no good and they don't want to pay for the food. Well, you know what? You're in a restaurant business. They didn't like the meal. They don't have to pay for it. They ate it all, but they don't have to pay for it because they didn't like it. Well, that's kind of going out the window. You ate the meal. Now you have to pay for it. So there's all sorts of ethical dilemmas that you come up with in different businesses, with different types of things. And we're going to talk a little bit about, it's not so much, we're going to talk about honesty, trust, being able to count on people's word, which is different than honesty. It's kind of being reliable and trustworthy. There's all sorts of ethics. Then there's also the ethics of hiring and firing. We'll talk about that also. I'm sure you've all run into these situations where, hey, I'm going in for a job. I'm going to say that I'm an expert and I speak Scandinavian, but I don't speak Scandinavian. But if I don't say that, then I won't get the job. Or I'm going to tell people that I know a lot about cars, but all I know about cars is that I drive them. But I want to get this job at a car company, and I'm going to pretend like I'm, is that ethical? Is that something that really I should do? Or then there's the situation where I don't really like this job. I'm not really going to put my all out in this job, but it's a paycheck, so I'm just going to show up, and when the boss isn't looking, I'm going to go sit in the corner and get on my phone. Is that ethical? We'll talk about that. I have had many employees who are like that, and it's a difficult thing. Do I fire them? Do they give them another opportunity? Do I talk to them? These are all the ethical dilemmas that supervisors have, that employees have. And what does it really mean in the big sense of things? In the bigger picture of things, what does not working mean? What does working mean? I grew up in a family that was very hard workers. I mean, my parents were extraordinarily hard workers. They went above and beyond with their work ethic. They believed that the work ethic was the most important thing in life, and there were times, I think, because they both grew up very poor, that they believed that the work ethic superseded everything in their lives. That even superseded family at times, and most likely, yeah, family, definitely family occasions, definitely familial gatherings, things like that. Work came first. Work was everything with them, and when you have nothing, and you have a job, and that job provides you with, a living for you and your family, then it becomes everything. Your job becomes, priority number one, and you're not going to go to a graduation or a holiday celebration, a Christmas celebration, or something like that, if you have the priority is work, and you have to be at work. Work becomes first. So that's an ethical dilemma you have. Ethics is a weird thing. Not so much that it sometimes isn't just business to business. It's family to business. What do I do? What takes priority here? My job. If I don't show up today, am I going to have a job tomorrow? Or my job is the most important thing, and then everything kind of follows that. So we have to talk about that. That's a huge headache for a lot of people, because they have to balance work and life. And it's very hard to balance work and life. People think it's like one of those, but the older you get and the more you work and the more you see things and the more you are kind of, even if you own your own business and you're an entrepreneur, the business becomes everything to you. Everything. It becomes almost like a baby to you. You become you're totally involved in the business. Sometimes I go to my store at 2:00 in the morning. 2:00 in the morning. What the hell am I doing there? But I have things on my mind about my business that if I don't get them done, then I'm up the whole night. I can't get to sleep until I get them done. I'm very much. I think I caught the bug from my mother and father, that you have to be very, very work very, very seriously, especially when you're a partner or a sole proprietor in a business. That business is, otherwise the business doesn't exist without you. I mean, it really doesn't exist. I mean, I could turn it over to somebody, I could sell it to somebody, but if I'm not running that business, if I'm not aware, there have been so many things that if I wasn't there for, that it would have hurt the business greatly. So yeah, I have to be there all the time, and I have to be aware all the time with that business, and it's very important to me right now, especially in retirement from Kingsborough, even though I'm adjuncting, in that I need to be there for my business. I need to be there for my family, but I need to be there for my business. So I'm going to stop the ethics part 1 right now, even though I went a little longer than I thought I would. I'm going to post this, and I hope this was like a little bit of an introduction to ethics to you. You get a somewhat understanding of it. It's a huge subject matter. Business ethics is as big as, I can write 100 books on business ethics and not stop. It's such a wide subject, but it's something we need to touch upon in this class, and it's part of the foundation of business, and I think it's important. I think it's important that you be aware of it. I think it's important that you're ethical, and I think it's important that you're constantly looking out for times when you feel that there's a problem and you need to figure things out. Maybe you could look towards other examples of businesses and how they deal with things ethically. A lot of businesses pride themselves on their ethics. That's they're environmentally ethical. They're ethical to their employees. They're ethical to the business itself. That they pride themselves that people have a chance to be with their family. They have a chance, and some businesses try to create the business as a family. There are these new businesses that have come out in the 21st century where they've tried to replace the family. I mean, I'll give you like Google. They, we're going to have, you're going to be here 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but we're going to make it like it's your family here. You're going to have food, and you're going to have entertainment, and you're going to have all kinds of fun things to do. But hey, we're giving you all these things because ethically we expect you to be here. And COVID changed the whole idea of ethics, that you no longer need to be. Do you have to go to the office? Well, don't really have to go to the office anymore. I could go online and do my work and do it just as well and maybe even better because I don't have to go into work and commute. So ethically, I don't have to show up today. I could just work from home and do a better job. Well, no, in the old days, you had to show up. You had to be there. What do you mean? You're not staying home. You can't go home. You have to come to work today. Show up 9 to 5. That whole idea of 9 to 5. That's another ethical thing. We don't. Now is it 9 to 5? Is it? I mean, with phones, with emails, with text, 24/7. I remember when I first got this thing, my phone. Hello, where is it? There it is. Or in those days, it was like a BlackBerry or a beeper. I thought it was like a big. I called it the dog leash because at times I was getting texts and emails at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, do they expect me to respond to this email at 3 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning? Do they expect me to actually think about work while I'm at home? Because that was something that the reason I chose to be a professor and chose to be work at a college, was I didn't want to think about work anymore. I had been in the private world. I didn't like the idea of having to think about work all the time. I liked the idea of having a work-life balance. So, okay, you can tell this is a big subject for me because I can't stop talking. Have a great day. I will talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye.